communication theory.
What is communication? We use it every day, but can we specify or define what it is? We define communication as the transmission, interpretation and exchange of information. Now, if there's an exchange, it means that there's more than one party involved. Typically, these parties are two human beings, and a classic example to describe a communication is an eye-to-eye conversation. You know how it used to be. Back in the day, when we sat around a bonfire telling our buddy how we spectacularly chased down that saber-toothed tiger to feed the kids in the cave. But even before, when spoken language was not yet developed, we knew how to communicate. Just imagine the cavemen painting their experiences on the cave wall. So clearly, we can communicate verbally and non-verbally. But since we now live in the 21st century, and globally connected companies as well as high-tech machines are part of our everyday lives, there's more to say about communication. According to our definition, that a communication consists of the transmission, interpretation and exchange of information, then how we interact with our computers might just be a communication as well. Well, of course, as of now, the conversation with a computer is just not that, let's say, vivid. The mechanics, however, are similar. You push a button on your keyboard and the computer perceives, interprets and reacts. So what do you think about this? Do you consider the interaction with a computer or even a company a communication? Let me know in the comments or personal message. Let's communicate!
Knowing what communication theory means, we also need to know the different theory of communication. First, we have muted group theory. Muted group theory is a critical theory concerning the certain groups of people who remain powerless compared to the others. The narrow perspective to the society, ignoring almost half of the population, affected the studies, and the muted group theory brought a light into the power of marginalizing in the society.
Muted Group Theory by Marin Riles, Ashley Felice, Margene Tomer, Michaela DeBerry, and McKenna Tirana. A muted group is defined by M. Griffin as people belonging to lower power groups who must change their language when communicating publicly. Thus, their ideas are often overlooked. The theory states that man-made language aids in defining, depreciating, and excluding women and all other minorities. Because men have primarily shaped language, muted groups frequently struggle to make their voices heard in the public sphere. In our culture, anyone who is not a white, heterosexual, middle-class male is automatically a muted group. Muted groups in our society are not necessarily silenced, but are generally unheard. These muted groups, which include women, people of color, different sexualities, different gender identities, and lower-class economic status, are forced to change the way they verbally express themselves to meet the standards of a man's language.
Broad terms, communication theory attempts to explain the product of information, how this information is transmitted, the methods used to convey it, and how meaning is thereby created and shared.
Hello guys! The next theory is phase negotiation theory. Phase negotiation theory was first proposed by Brown and Leveson in 1978 to understand how people from different cultures manage proper disagreement. Theory posits face or self-image.
Face negotiation theory is a theory first proposed by Brown and Levinson, 1978, to understand how people from different cultures manage rapport and disagreements. The theory posits face, or self-image, as a universal phenomenon that pervades across cultures. In conflicts, one's face is threatened, and thus the person tends to save or restore his or her face. This set of communicative behaviors, according to the theory, is called face work. Since people frame the situated meaning of face and enact face work differently from one culture to the next, the theory poses a cultural general framework to examine face work negotiation. Face negotiation theory is primarily based on the research of Brown and Levinson. In this theory, face is a metaphor for self-image, which originates from two Chinese conceptualizations, lin and mingzu. Lin is the internal moral face that involves shame, integrity, debasement, and honor issues. Mingzu, on the other hand, is the external social face that involves social recognition, position, authority, influence and power. Irving Goffman situated face in contemporary Western research. He noted that face is a concern for one's projected image that is both immediate and spontaneous, and is tied to the dynamics of social interaction. Correspondingly, face work denotes actions taken to maintain consistency between the self and public line. Further research by Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson on politeness suggests that the desire for face is a universal concern. Ting Toomey expands this thinking and conceptualizes face as an individual's claimed sense of favorable social self-image in a relational and network context. Face work is defined as clusters of communicative behaviors that are used to enact self-face and to uphold, challenge/threaten, or support the other person's face. With these concepts and frameworks, face negotiation theory investigates intercultural conflict styles. The perceived or actual conflict differences revolve around three issues: content, relational, and identity. Content conflict refers to the substantive issues external to the individual involved. Relational conflict refers to how individuals define, or would like to define, the particular relationship in that particular conflict episode. Identity-based conflict concerns issues of identity confirmation rejection, respect-disrespect, and approval-disapproval. In this way, identity issues are tied closely to culture-based face orientation factors. A face-threatening episode is an identity expectancy violation episode. Thus, the face negotiation theory views conflict, intercultural conflict in particular, as a situation that demands active face work management from the two interdependent conflict parties. The theory has gone through multiple iterations since its creation. There is a 1988 version of 7 Assumptions and 12 Propositions, a 1998 version of 7 Assumptions and 32 Propositions, and most recent the 2005 version of 7 Assumptions and 24 Propositions.
As a universal phenomenon that pervades across cultures, in conflict one's face threatens, and thus the person tends to save or restore his or her face.
The next theory is standpoint theory. The standpoint theory concerns with the various levels of people's perception. For instance, people have similarity in their opinion, depending on their demography, and it concerns mostly of general issues.
Hey guys, so here's our animation of our theory, the standpoint theory. Nancy Hartsock and Sandra Harding were the pioneers of the feminist standpoint theory, which we now know is just a standpoint theory, because it doesn't just apply to feminism anymore. Here's a picture of Nancy Hartsock, and here's another of Sandra Harding. The standpoint theory has evolved into the foundation for social progressivism. It started out as an explanation on why feminism was met with harsh opposition in the early 20th century. Here are some pictures of the women who were fighting for feminism. Alright, enough of the background of the standpoint theory. What exactly is it? Well, if you are still lost and confused about what it is, let's do a small recap. Well, a standpoint theory is a person's attitude/viewpoint on a particular issue based on their experiences. Everyone has different standpoints, and that's because we don't have the same experiences as others. Our standpoints evolve based on our geographical location, socioeconomic status, and our gender differences. We'll explore some of these factors with the following example. Meet Zach and meet Tom, who both have two different standpoints on the world. Zach grew up in a cultural marginalized community, while Tom grew up in a rich, non-marginalized society. We can see how their perspectives would be different, so let's apply it to an example. Let's look at the topic gun control. See, Zach grew up in a society where this issue was prominent and therefore very important to him, while Tom did not feel it was as important because growing up, it wasn't something that he had to worry about, so his attitude on gun control was non-existent or even not well developed as Zach was. Now that's just one example of how standpoint theory works. That's our small recap. Thank you for watching and listening. Bye!
The standpoint theory concerns with the various levels of people's perception. For instance, people have similarity in their opinion, depending on their demography, and it concerns mostly of general issues.
The most influential factor that regulates the perception is through experience. The tradition and culture also shape up a person's perception to a certain degree. One of the basic factors for altering perception is socioeconomic status in the society.
Every day we communicate. Communication happens through conversations, posters, or glances across a room. In fact, most communication occurs without much effort on our parts, or even opening our mouths. In Module 1, we will take a look at the big picture of communication and examine its basic elements. Communication starts with an idea. To be able to communicate, we must have an idea, a notion, something we want to express, information to share, etc. Our past experiences, values, attitudes, knowledge, culture, feelings, all influence our ideas and the way that we interpret the ideas of others. These influences are our unique perceptions or the way we view things around us. Before ideas can be transmitted to another person or group, we must encode these ideas. Think back to your history classes or football. What does a group at war or a team do when they don't want the other side or team to understand? They place that information or team play into code. In other words, they encode the idea. Now that the idea is encoded, it's ready to be transmitted or sent to another person or group. The encoded idea is called the message. The message is sent to a receiver. This is just like in a football game. The receiver is to catch the football. A telephone has a receiver in which you are able to hear the person on the other end of the line. The receiver must then interpret the message by filtering the new information through their past experiences, culture, attitudes, values, knowledge, and feelings. This interpretation is called decoding the message. The sender needs to make sure that the receiver understood the message. Therefore, it is the receiver's job to convey a message back. The receiver's reply to the sender is called feedback. The feedback allows the sender to ensure that the original message was interpreted correctly by the receiver. Once the cycle has gone full circle, it will repeat itself for as long as the conversation continues. We could even say that the sender and receiver change roles throughout the process, depending on who is sending the message and who is responding to feedback. Now that we understand the general idea about how the cycle works, let's look at a few other pieces of the communication process. The messages that are transmitted between senders and receivers are sent through channels. The channel essentially determines how the message will be sent. For example, if I wanted to tell someone hello, I could wave say hello or text hi to someone with my cell phone. The messages will be the same, however the manner in which I chose to send it varies. Think about the decisions that you have to make if you want to give someone a present. Will you give it to them yourself, mail it through the post office, or ask a friend to deliver it for you? Messages can be sent through many channels. For example, speaking face-to-face, instant messaging, writing letters, making facial expressions, or even watching television. Another important piece of the communication process is the context in which a communication takes place. The context includes everything from the emotions of the communicators, the reasons for the communication taking place, and where the actual communication takes place. So far, we have looked at the communication process and how it works in ideal situations. However, sometimes the process is interrupted. Something that interrupts, distorts, blocks, or interferes with the process is referred to as a communication barrier. Loud noises, bad phone connections, language, attitude about the topic or speaker, the temperature, and a broken hearing aid are all examples of the communication barriers.
So guys, we are now down to the last theory of this video presentation, and that is the media ecology theory.
Media ecology theory is the study of media, technology, and communication, and how they affect human environments. The theoretical concepts were proposed by Marshall McLuhan in 1964, while the term media ecology was first formally introduced by Neil Postman in 1968. Ecology in this context refers to the environment in which the medium is used, what they are and how they affect society. McLuhan proposed that media influence the progression of society, and that significant periods of time and growth can be categorized by the rise of a specific technology during that period. In other words, media ecology looks into the matter of how media of communication affect human perception, understanding, feeling, and value, and how our interaction with media facilitates or impedes our chances of survival. The word ecology implies the study of environments, their structure, content, and impact on people. An environment is, after all, a complex message system which imposes on human beings certain ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. To strengthen this theory, McLuhan and Quentin Fiore further claim that each time period has an important medium that defines the essence of the society, which correspond to the dominant mode of communication of the time respectively. Media ecology argues that media act as extensions of the human senses in each era, and communication technology is the primary cause of social change. McLuhan is famous for coining the phrase, "The medium is the message," which is an often debated phrase believed to mean that the medium chosen to relay a message is just as important, if not more so, than the message itself. Also of importance is the idea of the global village, a notion that the world is interconnected in ways previously unseen. To understand how media affect large structural changes in human outlook, media are classified as either hot or cool. Additionally, McLuhan, with his son Eric McLuhan, expanded the theory in 1988 by offering the tetrade laws of media as an organized concept that allows people to know the laws of media and the past, present and future effects of media.
Media ecology theory is a theoretical concept and school of thought that analyzes the impact and alterations by media and communication technology on human culture. The torch bearer of media ecology of Neil Postman defines the term as looking into the matter of how media of communication affects human perception, understanding, feeling, and value, and how our interaction with media facilitates or impedes our chances of survival.